The 2012 Champion of Children televised program is made possible by United Way of Central Ohio.
Welcome. I'm Fred Angela, your host and moderator for this 2012 Champion of Children program. There are three distinct but related segments that make up the next hour. First, we'll visit a Central Ohio middle school to see an example of the art and science of effective teaching. Then I'll be joined by four distinguished panelists to discuss the latest research about Franklin County school students and the challenges that they and our community face. And to close the program, United Way of Central Ohio President and CEO Janet Jackson will present this year's Champion of Children awardees. So let's begin. To foster successful learning and produce students who are prepared for the future, you've got to have effective teaching. Exactly how is effective teaching defined? How is it practiced? And can it be taught? We spent some time with Ohio Teacher of the Year Tim Dove and his colleagues at Phoenix Middle School in Worthington to find out.
Meet Tim Dove. He's a middle school social studies teacher in the Columbus suburb of Worthington, and he likes everything about his job.
I like the curriculum. I like the fact it changes. I like the fact that every year is different. It's not the same stuff. So it keeps you current, it keeps you moving, it keeps you thinking, it keeps it fresh. So I'm having a ball.
Tim's zest for teaching comes not only from doing what he gets to do every day, but where he gets to do it. Phoenix Middle School. 4 years ago, Tim and a team of teachers were given a unique opportunity to create a learning environment that would be their ideal school. Phoenix is the result.
There was a core group of about 6 to 10 of us, depending on the day, that really looked at what do we know is good for kids, what do we know is good for learning, what do we know is not helpful. Sometimes it's equally important to know that. And so Phoenix was developed out of a long history of people who have been around the block.
Phoenix differs from traditional middle schools in a number of ways. A major one is a longer school day. Students arrive at 7:15 in the morning. They don't go home until 5. The extra hours allow students and teachers the luxury of time to avoid rushing through important topics and concepts, to allow for more questions and more answers, and most importantly, to establish classroom connections that benefit everyone.
We feel like we're able to spend a lot of time with kids here, informally and formally, and we think that forming those relationships is really important to the atmosphere that's here. It supports kids, it gives them confidence, and it helps them move on from here to be confident in their further educational endeavors.
You know, we try to maximize the time with the kids to get to know them better. And when you get to know the kid better, you can tailor your curriculum so that kid can learn better.
The curriculum is another factor that differentiates Phoenix from other middle schools. In addition to Tim Dove's unique take on social studies, Beth Cullinan teaches global cultures. Bob Estes offers students a look at philosophy through critical thinking. And while the students are gaining knowledge about the world and their place in it, they aren't the only ones in the classroom who are learning. The teachers are teaching each other as well.
I'm learning from Tim. I mean, Tim teaches, I've told him, like a house on fire. I mean, he is so high energy. So when I'm teaching with someone and my colleagues watching me teach, it's really great to be able to turn to someone I respect and say, okay, so how do you think that worked? What would you do next time that's different?
So there really is a very strong ownership of what are we doing, and if something doesn't make sense, we stop doing it and start doing something that makes more sense. So we're always in conversation about what that means.
To ensure that their students succeed, Tim and his colleagues have one simple goal: to be effective teachers. And while the goal is simple, teaching is complicated. Being an effective teacher even more so. The reason? The best teaching combines two opposite disciplines, art and science. It's difficult to find a balance between the two. Phoenix has shown it can be done successfully.
Part of the science of teaching would be the things that are handed to you as an expectation of your job. So the graded course of study from my school district would be part of the science of teaching, I guess. along with the state standards and all the other layers of testing and those kinds of things. The art of teaching would more have to do with how do you put all that together, how do you give it relevance, how do you make sure kids are connecting to what's going on and actually understand what they're doing. And that's not a lockstep procedure.
The art part of it is the relationship you develop with other people. So in teaching, the relationship with the person you're teaching trumps everything. So that's the main thing we try to build here, is the relationship with kids. The science of it, in my opinion, is learning how to deliver your curriculum in a way that people's brains can absorb it. So that's the science part of it. So when you put those two things together, that, in my opinion, that's what makes a good teacher, a person that can do that.
When you look closely at Phoenix, you see an excellent example of effective teaching. Is Phoenix a model, the model for others to follow? In education, as in many other fields, one size rarely fits all.
There really isn't a single best way to teach, a single best curriculum or a single best classroom environment. That we need to know quality. We need to be able to define quality. We need to know it when we see it. But we also need to make room for differences, different high-quality models of teaching.
Rebecca Cantor identifies 4 critical areas essential to effective teaching: the knowledge the teacher has about the subject they teach, the ability to understand the community in which they are teaching, relating to and understanding the individual student, and what are called high-leverage skills.
There are particular skills that probably do cross communities and schools everywhere, and we're trying to understand what they are. Organizational skills, time management skills, group management skills. We need to be able to cull those out. So the science of teaching, I think, is about the research base that helps us look at those skills.
Cantor acknowledges that researching the art of effective teaching poses a greater challenge than exploring the science part of the equation.
It's hard to measure because a really brilliant teacher, a really effective teacher, makes it look effortless, makes it look easy. So we need to spend prolonged amount of time in Tim Dove's classroom, day after day after day, watching the decisions he makes, listening to the language he uses with his students, the way he reacts and responds on a true moment-by-moment, face-to-face basis, and you'll see patterns. It's not random, it's not chance.
A big part of your job as an artist in teaching is figuring out why students came up with the answers they came up with. Even though it may be off target in terms of the direction you're trying to go as a teacher, there's a strong logic as to why they did what they did or said what they said or wrote what they wrote. And a big part of my job as an artist in teaching is to figure out how'd they come up with that so that you can readjust it and say, okay, so if we turn this a little bit like this and relook at it, and then you get the which is the holy grail of teaching.
Can college students be taught how to become effective teachers? Tim Dove thinks so. He teaches at both Ohio State and Capitol and focuses on how education majors enter their chosen field. And while he uses Phoenix as a model, the process he advocates can apply to any school system.
People say, well, if you're learning about how to teach at Phoenix, again, how are you going to do in a traditional piece? You're going to do fine, because here it really is the issue of integration, talking with your colleagues. One of the biggest understandings in the research as to why people leave the profession is isolationism. You know, I'm a new teacher, I'm put in a classroom, I'm given a textbook, I'm given the graded course of study, and I don't get to talk to colleagues other than in a lunchroom, which is usually not the best situation in certain schools, about understanding what's going on in a school. You're not getting into the depth of conversation about curriculum or how kids are learning. And so this is the kind of culture that we're trying to show pre-service teachers. This is a healthy way to go.
Teachers like Tim and his fellow teachers know the value of preparing for a career in the classroom and their mentorship, plus the methods used at Phoenix make for a more in-depth student teaching experience. It's the type of preparation Rebecca Cantor sees as critical to creating 21st century teachers.
Have students in the classroom from the beginning of their training program. and they take on progressively more complex roles, more responsibility, and culminate with a student teaching experience where they're really responsible for the curriculum in the classroom for a period of time.
When local schools and universities partner to create more meaningful and comprehensive teaching programs, the result will be teachers who understand the art and the science of teaching and how to apply both.
Drop in, sink and swim hasn't worked, doesn't work, won't work. And having those collegial relationships between universities and local schools is a critical piece. They got to look at each other as colleagues, not I'm telling you how to do this. It's how do we work together as educators to make this a better situation.
For Tim Dove, his better situation is Phoenix Middle School, helping students find their voices and their direction in life. He and his colleagues are true practitioners of the art and the science of effective teaching.
It's a magical place because this is really a place where we look at what's important, not only about what we're learning, but the culture of our learning, and to be reflective about how are we learning as individuals and as a group, and then changing things, which is why the term Phoenix, changing things based on who we're dealing with at the moment, not necessarily what we did last year or 2 years ago, but continually evaluating what's working and not working here.
Well, part of what makes Tim and his colleagues so effective is that they are valued. They're supported by their administration as well as their community. That level of support can only help them in facing the inevitable challenges that are part of teaching. In Franklin County, there are many challenges confronting students, teachers, and administrators. A new report from Champion of Children and Learn for Life entitled Franklin County's Children, a look at their lives in and out of the classroom. That report offers research into the things that can get in the way of effective teaching and learning. To explore that report and what it means, I'm joined by four very distinguished Central Ohioans. Dr. David Harrison, president of Columbus State Community College. Tanny Crane, president and CEO of Crane Group and a board member of Learn for Life. Eric FINGERHUT, vice president of education and STEM learning at Battelle. Dr. Thomas Tucker, superintendent of Worthington City Schools. Thank you for being here with us today. Well, we've just seen these incredibly effective teachers. Thomas, Dr. Tucker, in your school system, do you think when we look at all of the difficulties and the obstacles that stand in the way of kids, and we were talking about poverty, food insufficiency, residential insecurity, learning disabilities, other disabilities, many things, do you think that effective teaching is the major component to helping them?
Absolutely. The major driving force to improving student achievement is the teacher in front of the students every day. You know, we hope that our boards make a difference. We hope that the superintendent makes a difference, and we hope that our principals make differences. And I think they do, but certainly the teacher makes the most profound difference in a kid's life, whether the kid achieves or not.
Above the plants, above the facilities, above out of the swimming pool, the classroom that doesn't leak. I mean, the teacher is the one.
Yes, the quality of the teacher and the quality of the instruction that's being given.
Let me ask you, Champion of Children, let me pose this to all of you on the panel. Champion of Children held more than 50 community conversations across the county. 450 and more participated, average citizens. They said we need to strengthen teaching and teachers, to strengthen teaching and teachers. Okay, how do we go about doing that? Give me some suggestions. David, how do we do it? Columbus State Community College?
I think we've got to give our teachers the kind of support that they need. I mean, if you think of all of the socioeconomic circumstances you just described, all of those are coming into the classroom with teachers every day. So we're holding them accountable for specific subject matter expertise. They're also accountable for the situation that child finds him or herself in, and the extended time that the Phoenix School has provided, the extended relationships it looks like that teachers are able to develop with students and families clearly is making a difference. So while the classroom teacher, I believe, is the single greatest point of impact in students' learning, we've got to do everything we can to support that teacher and the child's needs beyond what happens in the classroom.
Beyond what happens in the classroom. Eric Fingerhut, your suggestions as to what we need to strengthen teaching and teachers?
Well, we start by making sure that we're recruiting people into the profession who have the passion and the skills and the capabilities to do this, and that they get the kind of training. I mean, we heard from the professor at Ohio State who listed some of the key elements. For my work at Battelle and being involved in STEM learning, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the first point cannot be stressed enough, and that is content knowledge. You know, we take for granted that the teachers know the field, and unfortunately, in many of our schools, in the fields of STEM education, which is so critical to the students' success in this high-tech environment in which they're going to be, pursuing their careers, we don't have teachers who have the content knowledge
They sometimes
necessary.
don't know the subject matter very well.
Well, you know, to know science, technology, mathematics these days is to have a much deeper knowledge than perhaps was necessary before. You know, I run into too many teachers who say, "Look, I'm a teacher teaching science. I don't know the science myself. Or I don't know the mathematics myself." So we have an obligation to make sure that we're providing those who are going to be teachers with the content knowledge, and that we're going out and recruiting people who have that knowledge to come into the field. And then lastly, you know, that we dismiss, we say, well, Phoenix is a little different because they have the opportunity to work the longer hours, but we need to make sure that we give all the schools that opportunity. We have in this community our Metro High School, which is our STEM early college high school,
Terrific school,
which we're all proud of, but that's because we've given them a chance to do things differently, to focus on project-based learning, student involvement, to integrate curriculum, to approach things in a different way, just like you gave the Phoenix schools a chance to operate differently. Why do we expect that if we follow these rigid methods that we've followed all these years that we're going to get any different results? So let's recruit into the field, let's make sure we have the people who are qualified to teach, and then let's give them the flexibility that clearly Worthington gave Mr. Dove and the teachers of Phoenix to design a curriculum.
Tanny Crane, you're nodding your head in agreement with Eric Fingerhut. And first thing is recruiting. Is it hard to recruit people, the best people into the teaching profession?
Well, I think that's a great point. I think that we, as a community, as a culture, need to value teachers. I think decades ago, the field of teaching was very high in stature. I think we've lost that. Thomas and I were talking early that we, as a United States, were a model for other countries decades ago in terms of where we place teaching. We've lost that, and we've shown that model to other countries, but we don't value teaching. We don't pay teachers. And also, you know, we don't have teaching environments for today's children, especially in urban environments.
So in addition to money, I mean, it was one of the things we mentioned, teachers' salaries. How else do we value teachers? What do you do to value them?
What do we do to value them?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we need to provide teaching environments. I think we need to look at certification differently. I have an example of a chemical engineer in our facility who's been brilliant, who would love to teach science in a metro school or somewhere, but we make it so difficult from a licensure standpoint. That person is passionate about his knowledge and would love to teach, but can't teach in this environment. Went to Memphis and became Teacher of the Year for 3 years straight.
Wow. So there'd be somebody they have to go back to school, take so many courses? Many. And they just don't have the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And Thomas?
Fred, I want to add that our teachers, not only in Worthington, but across this great state and country of ours, are probably the best prepared they've ever been in the history of public education. That's not to say that there aren't things that we can do better, but solely focusing on teacher preparation certainly won't get it. My other panelists here who certainly have mentioned some things that we need to do, but I also believe we need to stop penalizing teachers by using the results on standardized tests. And along the way of valuing our teachers. We just can't solely penalize teachers because of how students scored on standardized tests.
So we got the standardized tests at various grade levels right now, right?
Correct.
So do you want to throw out those tests? Do you want to just value them less? I mean, how do you?
I think that should be used as a measure, not the measure. in terms of going to the extreme of publishing teachers' results in the local newspapers.
Now, Thomas, you say, in contradistinction to Eric, that indeed our teachers are the best prepared they've ever been, but Eric says that sometimes they don't know the subject matter in the STEM classes. So is it just that they're not terribly well prepared, but they're better than they ever have been, or do you disagree with that?
I'm simply saying that there's certainly room to better prepare our teachers. There's room to better prepare our administrators. There's also room to better prepare parents as well. We need to do a better job as parents in having our kids ready to come to school, ready to learn.
You know, we've got a couple of difficulties in terms of Learn for Life and Champion of Children goals. They want to see children prepared for kindergarten at the highest level. And that's one of the difficulties. Early childhood education, Tanny Crane, maybe not what it's, well, we may need better early childhood education. What would you look for, Tanny, if you were to say, here's a child coming into kindergarten who is prepared? What would that child act like? What would they look like?
Well, you know, just to step back, you know, we do have research to show from economists, from educators, from the field of neuroscience, that how critical those early years are. Yet we only spend about 2% of public dollars on early education. So the research also shows that, you know, kids come to school ready to learn when they have a quality, nurturing home environment, when they have access to quality early education, and they have good health care and nutrition. Parents are the best teachers, but they sometimes just don't know what they don't know. And right now, as we see in the Learn for Life and the Champion of Children data, we've got 80% in Columbus City schools, approximately 80% of our kids are economically disadvantaged. Over half of our kids are in a single family environment. So it's very challenging, and over 60% are not attending preschools. So if we could provide an environment where all of our children have the access to early education, you know, whether it's at home with a caretaker who has the access to information to read to their children, to learn how to prepare their kids for education. They'll be coming to school ready to learn.
So 60% are not attending preschool. Why is that? Is it a question of access, money? What's going on?
It's all of the above. It's all of the above. Many are in home care. Many don't know about where they don't even know how important that early learning years, that, you know, these synapses, you know, birth to 3, 700 connectors every second are occurring. I think some parents just don't have that information. So I think it's access to information, access to the quality early environments, and just that knowledge base.
There was a recent article in the New York Times that talked about the big dropout rate after 9th grade, huge dropout rate. But it said this can trace back to early childhood education, lack of preparation, David, from the very beginning, right? You've got to do better, starting then.
Well, I think there's a cumulative effect. And the conditions that Tanny just talked about, in many cases, those don't improve over time for those students. And you know, as the New York Times article pointed out, you know, many of them drop out in the 9th grade. And I think we can do a better job of creating a sense of purpose for some of those students, because in many cases there aren't necessarily role models who have been successful with regard to education. But I think there are opportunities to connect the workplace in a more purposeful way, so that there's earning and learning going on at the same time. The Gates Foundation is putting a lot of money in a Learn and Earn program that can help youth who may not be succeeding in school find connections with learning in another way. And that could also help address some of the non-academic issues that those students and their families are faced with.
Sure. Eric, you had something.
Yeah, I just maybe add 2 quick things. One is that because we are talking about effective teaching, I do think it's important to understand that, you know, children, when they're young, they have all the possibilities in front of them. They don't know that they don't know to say I'm not good at math. They don't know to say I don't like science, right? They're exploring, and so we do have to nurture that creativity from the youngest age, the preschool age, and then the early ages. We're doing STEM education, for example, in young ages, being purposeful about getting kids excited and motivated around science and technology. In the Reynoldsburg schools, they've got, I think, 400 kids here in this community in the K to 4 age group doing what is, what we're considering STEM education. So we need to keep them motivated young so that when they get to that 8th grade math, when they get to that 9th grade, those tests, that they're excited and they feel capable as they did when they were young. The second thing I would say is focusing on the community as a whole, which is critically important. Right. And we know that's true with respect to the basic needs of families, but it's also true about education. Kids, especially today, get so much of their information outside of the classroom, right? They're getting it from the TVs and from the internet and and all the devices that we have. So all of us, the libraries and the zoos and the parks and the museums, and here we're taping this in this wonderful science Kozai museum. All of us are part of educating the child and keeping them motivated and excited, and that's an important community role too.
Good point, because when you talk about, Tammy, as you did, nutrition, parental education, just all the outflows of poverty for people who are economically disadvantaged, the school can't do everything, I assume. So it needs the community to work together in a kind of a partnership. Okay, are we doing that here in Columbus and Franklin County? Tell me 1 or 2 things that we're doing as a community beyond the schools to help these kids.
It's a great point. I think sometimes, similar to what Thomas was saying, sometimes we have a tendency to blame teachers. That it's all the teachers' fault that our kids aren't being educated. But as I think all the panelists say, it's the culture of the community. It's the non-academic barriers that stand in the way, as Eric was saying as well. So I think some good news is there are a lot of collaborations. I think that people here in our community are recognizing that education is a responsibility for all of us. And so there are some great collaborations like Learn for Life.
Okay, what is Learn for Life? Tell us, for those who don't know, what do you do?
So Learn for Life is a collaboration across sectors. It's educators, it's nonprofit, it's the business community, it's the faith-based community, it's foundations, colleges, universities, coming together to recognize that education, that birth or cradle to career, is critical, and that we're all responsible for it. And so they're trying to find a framework to connect the dots between all those services and everything we can wrap our arms around these kids and being a child-focused effort from their birth, pre-birth, to their career. So we have lots of good programs and well-intentioned people throughout the community, but how do we ensure that we're tying them together? And Learn for Life has taken on 3 goals for the first year, as you had mentioned, really preparing children for kindergarten. What can we do? How can we ensure that kids are getting that strong middle school and that 8th grade math, which Dr. Harrison has talked about as a predictor of how they're going to perform getting into college, and then that remediation and that transition into college. So trying to focus on those 3 goals community-wide as a collaborative that we can all focus on.
Okay. Learn for Life seeks to do this community-wide collaboration. How effectively, let's say right now, how effectively are we collaborating as a community to do all the things you just mentioned? Are we at the very beginning of this, at the initial stages, or are we pretty sophisticated about that?
I'm pretty new in town.
Yeah.
But
you're from
here. You can't use that anymore.
And, so I think I'm still objective.
Okay.
And I think Columbus I've been enough places to recognize the difference. And Columbus, I think, is better positioned than most communities for this kind of collaboration. We have the building blocks in place to do, I think, some really meaningful work at a big scale.
Can you give me an example of one of those building blocks?
Well, sure. I mean, we are the 2nd largest college town in America in terms of enrollment of college students. So we've got Ohio State and Columbus State that are large institutions, but we've got many smaller, high-quality higher ed institutions in our region. We're blessed in that regard. There's a spirit of collaboration between and among the higher ed partners that a lot of people don't recognize, that's kind of unpublicized, but that really provides an infrastructure for our region that I think can make us competitive on a world-class basis. Now we're taking that infrastructure and trying to work more closely with high schools so that there's a real alignment here. So we've got some real building blocks. What we haven't had is the mortar that connects them, and I think initiatives like Learn for Life and other kinds of partnerships are really starting to provide that collaboration.
I was about to ask you, there's all this collaboration and cooperation among the colleges, but how does this help the 9th grade kid who's deciding to leave high school? How do those colleges help him?
It gives us an opportunity as a community to create an expectation that Columbus kids go to college. And we've got, again, I just moved into town with 2 kids who are going to be in high school. Columbus area has a great variety of opportunities in terms of really high quality school districts. We have an opportunity, I think, to collaborate in a deeper way between higher ed and K-12, especially secondary education, to align our curriculum to make the transition seamless from post-secondary or from secondary to post-secondary education. And again, to create that as an expectation in our community.
So, Eric, how does the community go about saying, here is the 9th grade student thinking about dropping out, right, as many do, too many. And how does the community go around about creating an expectation that in this community, you're going to finish high school and you're going to go on to a community college or you're going to go into a college? On a practical level, how do you do that?
Well, I think that there's one of the very important functions of Learn for Life is to make sure that all of the organizations that might see that young person, first of all, that we know who that person is, right? That there's a database that identifies that young person, because we know if they're not coming to if they live in Columbus, for example, and they're not coming to school, we can know that, right? And then which social agency knows that child and is able to reach them. So that's where I think there's just a practical, let's find that young person and get them referred to the right place in the system. But
you say referred to what, for example,
well, again, we have a network of agencies that exist, schools and social service agencies that exist to serve the child. Having services isn't always, a lack of service isn't always the issue, Fred. It's not finding the child and making sure that they get to the right person. So the expectation, I think, candidly, what Learn for Life is creating is an expectation among all of us that we've got to coordinate so that we don't let that child fall through the cracks. But I'd like to just challenge the word collaboration, if I could, and say that this has to go beyond collaboration to really integration of efforts, to breaking down organizational barriers and silos. The fact of the matter is that the distinction that David is correctly saying between high school and college is breaking down, right? At Metro Early College High School, which is based on a mastery model, we have kids who are ready to go on and take college courses, 9th, 10th grade, and they are. We had a young person who graduated last year who entered Ohio State as a senior practically. But then there are other children who are not ready, and we have to have our institutions to be flexible enough to be able to to work with both of those types of students.
This is the Metro School, the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math School, right? And I've been out to that school, and yeah, I think there is an expectation I've noticed among the students there that they're going to do well, number one, and number two, they're going to go to college.
Right. But Fred, this is an inclusive school, right? They didn't compete and have to show test scores to get in. This is students who chose to come, and their parents who chose to come based on their desire to be in that environment. There are other students who will do better in other environments. There's no one size fits all for this, but we have lots of different environments. Thomas, your school Phoenix School was a great example. We have those environments in this community. We can't let kids fall through the cracks because it wasn't for our school. That's what I mean by integration. There's a sense of collective responsibility that has to exist here, not to the organizations and the structures, but to the success of the students.
Well, here we have Thomas.
And I'm very pleased to hear the conversation go from competition to collaboration, because if we're truly serious about preparing kids for the world of work or college, we have to collaborate and we have to cooperate and not get so much involved in the competition.
Has there been a spirit in Franklin County of competition? I mean, is this what you're fighting right now?
Absolutely. Whether you talk about the Metro School or to an extent our Phoenix School, our standalone STEM schools have all been schools where there's been a lottery. where there have been winners and losers. And we have been very fortunate with the help of our community and our board in the Worthington City School District to build STEM initiatives in two of our other high schools, and also incorporate it in our middle school as well. So we're finally getting the message that we need to collaborate as opposed to engage in competition.
So we got STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and kids who have the aptitude and the interest. As you say, the Reynoldsburg school system down to the 4th grade has a special... Kindergarten, down to kindergarten. Yeah. Well, how about a student who has another kind of intelligence, interested in the arts, let's say? The word STEAM has been used. They add the word, the letter A to STEM. What are we doing for kids who don't want to be scientists and don't want to be technologists?
So can I'm sorry, I've got to jump in.
Eric, you got to jump in.
Then I have to. I'm the one with STEM in the title of my job, I guess, so I start. I have to challenge, Fred, the premise of the question, the way you phrased the question. I'm very respectful to your role in this community, but who decides that a child doesn't have an aptitude or interest in science or math? That's a self-identification. That's frankly the way we've projected that there are kids who are not capable. We believe that all kids are capable, and the fact is that in this increasingly sophisticated technological environment, for our young people to be successful in any field, you want to be successful in arts, you've got to be dealing with electronics and engineering and all sorts of things. We have got to create an expectation. We know that all kids can learn and succeed in STEM, and we've got to create environments where they can. Or not only will these children not be successful in life, but this country will not be successful in competing in a global economy. So we have an expectation that all kids can succeed in it. We do not think this is it is not a zero-sum game, STEM versus the arts. It is something that all of us have to have capabilities in. We are frankly a little behind in this country right now in these areas, and it's showing in our workforce and in our economic competitiveness, and we ought to make sure that we have an attitude that all kids can succeed, and not that it's a competition between STEM and something else.
No, definitely not a competition, but I would challenge you as well, Eric. There are some kids who should say that a child is not interested in science and math. At a certain point in their education, that child will tell you. I would have told you that. I wasn't interested, nor did I have very much confidence in that area.
But we're projecting. We're letting them make those decisions way too early because we haven't provided the kinds of creative opportunities, the high quality STEM education that we know we can do does not exist. You know, Thomas said we have a lottery, right? Yeah. The lottery isn't competition, it's just a reflection of the limitation of spaces. When we have available the kinds of high quality STEM education for all of our children so that they all have an opportunity to get to the level of competency that is necessary to succeed in college and to succeed in the economy, and we don't accept I'm not good at math as a acceptable statement, then we're going to start having the kinds of success as a community and as a country again that we need.
All right. Yes, Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm lacking you more and more because it's nice to see the shift also going from a place where kids are being pigeonholed to more of an emphasis on equity, ensuring all students are ready for STEM, whereas we're not making a choice for them. Kids are prepared to do well, whether it's in STEM or, Fred, as you said, in language arts or some other social services field.
Tammy, let me ask you this, Tammy, in the few minutes we have remaining here. Again, a community, collaborative, or cooperation, not competition. How do the 60% of the children don't go to preschools right now. How do we change that with the community collaborative rather than competition? What do we do?
Well, I think, first is building awareness. And I think that that's what is going on right now. I think that's part of what Learn for Life and United Way is all about. And we, as much as I don't like as you don't like measures, what we have right now is a crawl score. And when we have, in Columbus City Schools, 35% of our kids not ready for school, we have to stand up and say that's not all right. So I think it's educating parents. It's making sure that we do have quality early education systems, that we need to go in, and we have one great program right now called Columbus Kids.
Right.
So real quickly, it's for 2.5 to 4-year-olds. It's with parents, it's an assessment. It's a learning checkup for every 6 months, a 2.5, 3, and 4-year-old. And it shares with parents, you have a child who needs an intervention, maybe has a hearing issue, maybe a social issue. helping those parents see that their child may need an intervention. So it's helping their community understand getting these kids ready for school.
Tanny, how do we need to do that? Do we need to expand this awareness and these possibilities? Do we need more money, more personnel? What do we need?
I can always say all of the above, but we don't always have that. As I said before, only 2% of public dollars goes toward our earliest learners. So clearly that needs to be flipped somewhat, because we know, as Dr. Harrison said, that once they start behind, it's very difficult to catch up, and all we do is spend a lot of money on the back end. So I think we need dollars to educate teachers. We need higher quality teachers in early education. We need parents who are more educated. We have a great library system. We're about to honor a leader in the libraries. They're providing great knowledge to parents and teaching parents how to read to their kids. So again, it's that collaboration. All of us in the community can help get our kids ready for kindergarten.
So in terms of teaching, we've learned two things in the past half hour. Number one, let's not blame teachers for everything, because you need to go far beyond the schools and into the community. Number two, the teachers, Thomas, as you said, if you picked maybe one thing, is it true to say, let me ask you, if you picked one thing that would make a change for these at-risk kids, would it be effective teachers and one thing above all else?
Oh, absolutely. As I said in the beginning, it's the quality of the teacher in front of the students. And Tanny, for the record, I do like numbers and metrics, and my colleagues will be the first to tell you that. But I think it has to be a happy medium. You have to find that sweet spot where you're looking at the numbers versus the other things, the humanistic things that the teacher brings to the classroom. And one of the things that we really are having a big conversation about in the Worthington City School District is finding that happy medium between discipline and creativity, ensuring that the discipline does not erode the creativity, or the creativity overshadowing the discipline.
Tell me, we have a little more than a minute left, Thomas. Tell me, you said humanistic things that a teacher brings to a classroom. For example?
Well, as Mr. Estes said earlier in the video, you first and foremost have to have that personalized relationship. As I have always said during my 25-year career in education, if you don't have that personalized relationship, if you can't capture the heart of the student, you're not going to capture his or her mind.
Capturing the heart. Everybody, I think, on the panel would agree with that, right? It's a heart relationship. I mean, you got to know the subject matter, right? And we have to have the teacher training, but at the same time, you have to have that heart relationship. You have to care about the kids, Danny, is that right? Okay. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. My thanks again to our panelists, Dr. David Harrison, Eric FINGERHUT, Dr. Thomas Tucker, and Tanny Crane. Coming up next, you'll meet this year's Champions of Children.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of United Way of Central Ohio, Janet Jackson.
Good evening. What an excellent discussion. I am always so impressed at the level of knowledge of our panelists and the insights they share. I have been deeply involved with education in Central Ohio for many years, but I have certainly learned about important new information and approaches tonight. I hope everyone who experiences this event, both in the audience tonight and by watching the broadcast on WOSU, will be inspired to get involved with the children of our community and be their champions. It is my honor tonight to present the 2012 Champion of Children's Award. These awards have become an honored tradition in Central Ohio. They are a way to recognize the people in our community who have devoted themselves to ensuring that all of our children have the opportunities they need to reach their potential. The positive impact of these champions is far-reaching and will continue to benefit our community for years to come, as our students succeed in school, graduate, and go on to productive careers. Nominations for the awards come from community members and others deeply involved in education. And the honorees are selected by a committee of community leaders who look for people who have a proven record of success and inspire others to work on behalf of our children. Champion of Children became a part of United Way of Central Ohio in 2010 and now encompasses all of the work we do in education. One of the many positive results of bringing both organizations together was the decision to create the Champion of Children Nonprofit Organization Award, which will be given for the first time tonight. But first, it is my privilege to recognize our individual Champion of Children. The 2012 Champion of Children is someone who is not only passionately devoted to developing young minds, but is a true leader who can guide and inspire others to realize a vision of a better future for all of our children. As Executive Director of the Columbus Metropolitan Library, Patrick LOSINSKI has led a team that has consistently developed innovative ways to nurture and stimulate young minds. Pat understands the tremendous potential for teaching and learning that exists in every library. And he and his team have realized that potential through innovative approaches that not only bring more people into libraries, but go far beyond the walls of those buildings to reach people where they live. His work has earned the Columbus Metropolitan Library well-deserved praises from within our community and across the country, winning numerous awards and being named the #1 library in the United States. Because of Pat's emphasis on children, thousands of our youngest learners have learned to love books and unlock the powerful knowledge they contain. For all he has done to help our children, Pat now joins a distinguished group of local leaders who have been recognized as champions of children and have made a deep, far-reaching impact on the lives of children in Central Ohio. Please welcome the 2012 Champion of Children, Patrick LOSINSKI.
Thank you, Janet, for that very kind and gracious introduction. It really is a deep honor to accept this award in the company of so many dedicated community leaders, professional educators, and friends who have worked so hard on behalf of children in Central Ohio. It also is an honor to be listed alongside the previous year's champions, so many people who I admire so much. As the Executive Director of the Columbus Metropolitan Library, I may be accepting the award, but in fact, this honor really recognizes the outstanding staff of CML who have labored long and hard to change the lives of many of our most vulnerable citizens through signature programs like our Ready to Read, our summer reading program, and our homework help centers. So I accept this award on behalf of our children's librarians and the entire staff that has arguably made CML the best library in the United States. I especially want to thank those institutions who stepped up at the beginning to help us launch our Ready to Read Corps. They had faith in us, they encouraged us to think boldly, and they believed, as our team does, that libraries are transformational community agencies capable of having great impact. And that impact was recognized just a few weeks ago on a national level when President Obama named our Ready to Read staff member, Sugal Ali, as one of his champions of change during a White House ceremony. We have a great story to tell, but it takes the right people to tell it. And for that, I'd like to thank our marketing, our media, and our social media teams who've helped us reach a national audience and elevated our local presence as well. Our library community is so fortunate to have such passionate and caring community leaders who serve on our library board, our foundation board, our Friends of the Library. They challenge us to do our best work every day, and we are most grateful for their ongoing support and help. And of course, I want to thank Linda Cass, Janet Jackson and her United Way team, and my nominator, Don Gorman. While my time up here is short, I do want to leave you with a call for action. We have so much work to do to ensure kindergarten readiness, to achieve 100% graduation rates, and to attain the library's vision of a thriving community where wisdom prevails. I'm very optimistic about our future because of the emerging support that I see from programs like Learn for Life that are building important bridges between educators, funders, the business community, nonprofits, and our civic leadership. Let's use the collective energy in this room and the community to set a goal that with all our resources and great minds will make Columbus the internationally recognized urban community that has solved the most difficult educational challenges. Imagine the overwhelming number of visitors that we will host when they come to learn how our educational support from pre-K through the attainment of college, how our collective commitment to data-rich outcomes, and how our innovative, integrated, and strategic approach will have helped us realize our community's potential because each child will have reached his or her potential. In closing, let me again thank the incredible library team, and my sincere thanks go out to my family, my wonderful wife, Vicki, and our champion children, John and Abby, who support me in every possible way. Thank you very much for this wonderful honor.
Now I'm excited to present our new recognition, the Champion of Children nonprofit organization. Champion of Children has been honoring individuals since 1994, but we all know that there are many fine organizations that also deserve recognition. And no organization is more deserving than Action for Children, Central Ohio's resource and referral agency for child care and early learning programs and services. Action for Children, led by its longtime, passionate executive director, Diane Bennett, has been a consistent and passionate advocate for high-quality education for 40 years. The organization has trained and guided thousands of home care providers, helping them become true educators for young children. We know that a high-quality early education is the key to success in kindergarten and beyond. And with the help of Action for Children, generations of children have gone on to succeed in school and strengthen our community. Please welcome Action for Children Board President Jeff Coleman to accept the first ever Champion of Children Nonprofit Organization Award.
Well, good evening. As she said, I'm Jeff Coleman, the board president of Action for Children. And on behalf of our board of directors, staff, many who are in the audience this evening, and CEO Diane Bennett, I want to thank you for this prestigious award. It is an honor to be named the first organization to receive the Champion of Children Award. And it is especially poignant that it's our 40th anniversary year in the Columbus Bicentennial. We've been committed over these 40 years to helping Columbus become the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Action for Children was co-founded in 1972 by a woman who played an important role in my life, my grandmother, Cecilia, or as her friend said, C. Coleman. My grandmother was quite a force. She was a social worker by profession and a philanthropist by passion. She recognized that as more women entered the workforce, they needed good quality childcare. So with the help of fellow social worker Rosa Hightower, the director of Central Community House, and the support of the United Community Council, which is today's United Way, our agency, then known as the Community Coordinated Childcare, was born. Its mission was to assure that parents would have available, affordable, quality child care. During 4 decades, we've expanded our mission to recognize that children in their first 5 years need safe, secure childcare in quality learning environments that will prepare them for kindergarten, school, and lifelong success. We are a child's advocate for the right to quality care and early education, where young children can learn, grow, and develop to their fullest potential. This has been our work and our promise. Making good on our promise, we've helped thousands of parents find childcare. Many parents have attended the Art of Positive Parenting, TAP classes, and seminars to assist them in their parenting skills. Just 3 years ago, we developed a special class for dads called the Father Factor. And today, our Putting the Children First class, which is required by the court for those parents of minor children filing for divorce or dissolution, is even available online. This past year, our services reached nearly 17,000 parents in Central Ohio. We also help home child care providers become voluntarily registered in states that don't require licensing and assist them in receiving USDA reimbursement for healthy meals and snacks they serve to children in their care. We assist child care centers in becoming nationally accredited and step up to quality star rated. Our guidance, coaching, and mentoring has helped providers earn the Child Development Associate credential, laying the groundwork for earning an associate's degree at Columbus State Community College or an undergrad degree in early childhood education. This past year, our services reached more than 11,000 child care and early learning professionals. My grandmother, who lived and remained active until her death in 2006, would be so proud of this recognition for Action for Children. And our work positively affects the lives of over 40,000 children annually, and we will continue to make good on our promise so that today's children and the generations to follow will have quality care and education that will assure that they are ready to assume their role as thinkers, leaders, in the workforce of tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, with that, we're at the conclusion of the 2012 Champion of Children program. Thanks again to our panel, our award winners, and to United Way of Central Ohio for its support. And thank you for watching.
The 2012 Champion of Children televised program was made possible by United Way of Central Ohio.